very much in the backdrop of that Hriday Kunj or Bapu Ki Kutia at the Sabarmati Ashram. And he's always made it a point. Sheikh Hasina also arrives over here. He's always made the point whenever he's gone to Gujarat, and even when dignitaries have been coming in from abroad, Japanese Prime Minister, so on and so forth, he's always gone to Sabarmati Ashram and explained to them what Gandhism always mean about. In that backdrop, the inclusion of people who are downtrodden, who are looked down upon, who don't get a chance to speak out, India can be a champion of that. And that is also reflected very much in the New Delhi Declaration. And in that sense, India's voice about Global South has been one of the most strongest ones. And yesterday, in fact, we were here when the Prime Minister announced the inclusion of the African Union into the G20. Diplomatically speaking, it was seen as a kind of a coup, because that's the old area where the Chinese are also trying to make the entrenchment in terms of various infrastructure policies and projects and so on and so forth. And Africa, with a huge amount of mineral and resources at their disposal, can actually be a formidable ally. And I think the Prime Minister of India rather did understand that, and thereby the inclusion of the African Union into the G20 became very, very diplomatically significant and a coup. But beyond that, I think the larger message, you're absolutely right, Akanksha, is when you talk about Gandhism, you talk about, what did Mahatma Gandhi also stand for? People who are backwards, the Harijans, how you would call them. Those are the people who really need to be included and need to be embraced. That's the point which the Prime Minister made when he made a strong pitch for the inclusion of the African Union into G20.
Absolutely. And let me bring in Siddhant on that point as well. Siddhant, you heard some very valid points being made by Pallavi over there. Take them forward for us, but at the same time, do enlighten our viewers in terms of who all are expected now. I can already see Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina being welcomed by Indian Prime Minister over there. Take us through who all are expected before we take this entire discussion forward.
Well, all these leaders are going to go to Rajghat. Rajghat is something which is perhaps on the itinerary of each of these leaders who have come to India to participate in G20 summit, because Bapu is someone, and perhaps his ideology, his thoughts can lead word onto the path of peace. And time and again we have seen that whenever there are bilateral trips, state visits, there is one or the other engagement where leaders do take a visit to Gandhi to ashram in Gujarat, or perhaps that Charkha photo op is something which has been going on for a long time. So Bapu is very special to each one of these leaders, no matter which ideology they come from, or which country they belong to. And we can see Prime Minister Modi welcoming each of these leaders at Rajghat. This is perhaps the second day of the summit, and it's a big moment also for India, as India has managed to successfully build consensus, also managed to deliver a very ambitious, decisive agenda for the countries of the Global South. So this is a matter of immense pride, and also talks about the effective diplomacy that India exercises, and it should, and it is not an exaggeration, but many are calling it Vishwaguru skills to get President Biden and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on one stage is not a work of a light diplomacy. It requires a lot of effort, or perhaps to get the Western Bloc, Russia, China together and build consensus. It was a tightrope which India was walking, but now it's time for India to reap the fruits as consensus have been built. So it's a big moment for Prime Minister Modi. I can see the Prime Minister of Mauritius, walking towards Prime Minister Modi, and Mauritius is the invitee, special invitee for the G20 summit. They are not the member state, but they have been invited by India, since India was the host, and so India invited Mauritius. Like that, India also invited Netherlands, Oman, UAE. So all these close allies and partners of India were given priority this time around. And they were invited to participate as a guest nation, and also their thoughts and their agenda was included in the Delhi Declaration. So
And
the
that's
idea of
interesting
this
because Siddhant, that is India's way of in fact emphasizing on inclusivity. Pallavi, if I could come back to you, as you were hearing what Siddhant was saying, we are seeing the Mauritian Prime Minister right now also being welcomed. India's way of, emphasizing on the idea of inclusivity, not just by the theme of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, but also the way the Prime Minister has warmly welcomed, heads of states, especially of emerging nations, of underdeveloped nations. The message is loud and clear that the global south, that the emerging nations, the mantle is now with them.
Yes, absolutely. And just to add on to the backdrop, to add on to the delegates and dignitaries going to Rajghat, remember when the Prime Minister had gone to Hiroshima earlier this year, he had also actually unveiled a Gandhi statue. And Hiroshima, we all who have studied history do know that it's considered to be an epicenter of everything which has gone horribly wrong with any kind of a war. Again, that was a message which the Prime Minister sent out. The apostle of peace is someone which needs to be embraced by everyone in the country. So it's not a small achievement if all the dignitaries are taking time out, that too on a rainy morning, to actually go to Rajghat. And when all of them arrive over here and that those Shraddhanjali is finished off at Rajghat, there is going to be the hymns of Gandhiji also which are going to be played out over there. But yes, to answer your question, Akanksha, all of us who have been reporting on this talk about two important points. Vishwamitra, India can be a friend of the world and is a friend of the world. And second, of course, is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, one family, one future, one earth. And despite the acrimony, there may be differences of opinion. In fact, when I was speaking to the spokesperson of the South African president upon the inclusion of the African Union, he said, the point is that there are many differences amongst all of us. It's not possible to be on the same page. But at least the fact that India thought of us, thought of at least all those 55 countries in one of the largest continents, that is a big achievement. That goes on to show that India actually thinks of the world as one. And I think we leave behind this presidency as we pass it on to Brazil. We are going to put a lot on their shoulder because they'll have to take on this message across in the next coming days and years that, if India can do it and India has given this message to the world, you really need to protect and preserve this as well.
And India is doing that to the T. In fact, I'm also joined in by Arun Datta, who's also reporting in terms of where the leaders are currently. Arun, take us through who all are now expected to arrive. Pallavi was also throwing light on the entire program, because in some time after the wreath-laying ceremony, the leaders will also be welcomed by some devotional songs of the Mahatma. We're also learning they'll be signing the peace wall inside the leaders' lounge at the Rajghat.
Well, see,
Arun, can you hear me?
We are told that the Deputy Prime Minister of Oman has arrived at Rajghat to pay his respect to Mahatma Gandhi, and we are also seeing that Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has also arrived at Rajghat to pay, of course, homage to Mahatma Gandhi and to lay a wreath. And also, we are seeing that Egyptian President is also there at Rajghat, and of course we are expecting many other G20 leaders to reach